In the shadowed annals of history, where empires rise and fall like the tides of the great seas, the Ottoman Empire stands as a colossal testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and the darker impulses that accompany unchecked power. The history of the Ottoman Empire is rich and complex, filled with moments of immense power, cultural achievements, and, at times, chilling brutality. One aspect that often stirs both fascination and horror is the array of punishment methods used during its reign. These methods, while brutal by today's standards, were not uncommon in the empires of the past. They were often designed not only to punish, but also to deter others from committing similar crimes. Imagine, if you will, a vast realm stretching from the sun-baked sands of North Africa to the misty mountains of the Balkans, where sultans ruled with iron fists cloaked in silk, and justice was as swift as it was merciless. In this exploration, we'll delve into some of the most gruesome punishment methods used by the Ottomans, shedding light on the harsh realities of justice in the empire. As we journey through these tales of torment, picture the bustling bazaars, the echoing calls to prayer, and the silent dread that hung over those who dared defy the throne. Let us begin with a punishment that strikes at the very essence of perception. Eye gouging. Eye gouging, a punishment method as terrifying as it sounds, was often reserved for those who committed serious offenses against the state. This method was believed to be a fitting punishment for betrayers and traitors. The idea was not just to incapacitate the individual, but also to serve as a public warning to others. In the crowded public squares of Istanbul or Edirne, where merchants haggled and children played unaware, such spectacles unfolded under the watchful eyes of the populace. According to Evliya Çelebi, an Ottoman traveler and writer, eye gouging was sometimes carried out in public squares, where the condemned would be restrained and their eyes removed using sharp instruments. The air would thicken with the condemned's cries, as skilled executioners wielded their blades with precision, born of grim practice. This gruesome act was intended to render the individual powerless, both literally and symbolically, stripping them of their ability to see the world and thus participate fully in it. The loss of sight was also seen as a fate worse than death for many, further amplifying the severity of this punishment. In a world where vision meant survival, spotting an enemy on the horizon, or navigating the treacherous paths of court intrigue, such a penalty echoed long after the deed, leaving the victim to wander in eternal darkness, a living monument to the empire's unforgiving code. From the theft of sight, we turn to the severance of life itself. Beheadings. Beheadings were one of the most common and significant forms of execution in the Ottoman Empire, utilized for a wide range of crimes, particularly those seen as threats to the state or acts of severe betrayal. Beheadings were typically carried out with a swift stroke of a sword or axe, emphasizing the empire's efficiency in delivering justice. Envision the executioner's blade, forged in the empire's renowned armories, glinting under the midday sun as it descended in a blur of finality. The process of beheading was often a public spectacle, drawing crowds who would gather to witness the execution of those condemned. This served multiple purposes. It was a stark warning to others, a reminder of the consequences of defying the law, and a reinforcement of the Sultan's absolute power. Among the countless heads that rolled across the empire's history, one stands out like a blood-stained banner in the wind: the fate of a man who dared to dream of change. One of the most historically significant beheadings in the Ottoman Empire was that of the rebel leader Sheikh Bedreddin in 1420. Sheikh Bedreddin was a former Ottoman judge and mystic who led a rebellion against Sultan Mehmed III. His movement, which called for social and economic reforms, gained a significant following, particularly among peasants and disaffected segments of society. The rebellion, however, was perceived as a direct threat to the stability and authority of the Ottoman state. Picture the dusty battlefields where his followers clashed with imperial forces, their cries for justice mingling with the clash of steel, only to be silenced by defeat. After his forces were defeated, Sheikh Bedreddin was captured and brought before the Sultan. Despite his status as a religious scholar and former judge, the severity of his actions left the authorities with no choice but to sentence him to death. His beheading took place in the town of Serez, modern-day Sers in Greece, and it was conducted publicly to serve as a deterrent to others who might consider challenging the Ottoman rule. But beheadings were not confined to rebels alone. They echoed through the aftermath of wars, where victory was sealed in crimson. After a battle, Ottoman forces might decapitate captured leaders or soldiers, displaying their heads as trophies or sending them back to the capital as proof of victory. This gruesome practice served to demoralize the enemy and showcase the Ottomans' military prowess. Heads mounted on pikes along city walls or paraded through streets became grim heralds of triumph, their vacant eyes staring into the souls of potential adversaries, whispering tales of inevitable doom. Now, let us descend to the ground, where pain was inflicted not upon the neck, but upon the foundation of mobility. Falaka. The falaka, a method of corporal punishment, was used extensively in the Ottoman Empire to discipline soldiers, slaves, and even students. This punishment involved beating the soles of the feet with a rod or a stick. Though it might seem less severe compared to other punishments on this list, the pain inflicted by the falaka was intense and could leave the victim unable to walk for days. Imagine a soldier, fresh from drill, bound with his feet elevated, the rod whistling through the air before striking with a crack that reverberated through bone and sinew, each blow a lesson etched in agony. The falaka was often administered in public, with the number of strikes determined by the severity of the offense. It was a method that left no visible scars, making it a preferred choice for punishments where the goal was to inflict pain without long-term physical damage. This method was seen as a way to instill discipline and maintain order within the ranks of the Ottoman military and society. In the barracks or madrasas, where order was paramount, the falaka ensured that wayward steps were corrected, one excruciating strike at a time, fostering a culture where obedience walked hand in hand with fear. Ascending once more to the heights of finality, we encounter a punishment that dangled life by a thread: hanging. Hanging was another common method of execution in the Ottoman Empire, used primarily for crimes such as murder, theft, and rebellion. Hangings were typically conducted in public spaces, where the condemned would be left to hang as a stark reminder of the consequences of criminal behavior. Picture the gallows in a teeming square, the noose swaying gently in the breeze like a serpent awaiting its prey, as the crowd held its breath for the drop. In some cases, the Ottomans employed variations of hanging, such as the use of hooks or poles, which added to the gruesomeness of the punishment. This method was intended to serve both as retribution for the crime and as a deterrent to others who might consider similar actions. The public nature of hangings also reinforced the power of the state and its ability to enforce its laws through lethal means. Bodies left swaying for days became macabre signposts, guiding the living away from the paths of transgression. For those whose crimes demanded a lasting mark upon the flesh, there was amputation. Amputation, particularly of hands or feet, was a punishment reserved for thieves and those who committed acts of rebellion. Amputation was both a physical and symbolic act, intended to permanently disable the offender and prevent them from committing further crimes. In the heart of a bustling marketplace, where spices and silks tempted the eye, a thief might find his hand raised high before the blade fell, the crowd gasping as blood stained the earth. This punishment was carried out in a public setting, often in a marketplace or a square, where the severity of the crime was underscored by the harshness of the punishment. The sight of a thief with a severed hand served as a powerful deterrent, reminding all who witnessed it of the consequences of breaking the law. In the Ottoman judicial system, amputation was seen as a necessary measure to maintain order and protect property. It was a cut that severed not just limb from body, but criminal from society, ensuring that the empire's treasures remained safe from grasping hands. Delving deeper into the realms of personal devastation, we confront a punishment that assaulted the core of identity: emasculation. Emasculation, the removal of a man's genitals, was one of the most extreme forms of punishment in the Ottoman Empire. Used primarily as a form of political retribution or to punish sexual crimes, this brutal act was meant to completely strip the individual of their manhood and, by extension, their social status and power. In the opulent yet treacherous halls of the Topkapi Palace, where whispers of conspiracy could lead to such fates, the procedure was carried out with cold deliberation, leaving the victim a hollow shell of his former self. Emasculation was not only a physical punishment, but also a psychological one, as it deprived the victim of their ability to procreate and continue their lineage. In the highly patriarchal society of the Ottoman Empire, this was seen as one of the most severe penalties that could be inflicted upon a man. It shattered lineages, erased futures, and reduced warriors to whispers, a fate that lingered in the minds of courtiers and commoners alike. Finally, we arrive at the pinnacle of horror, a method that pierced the soul as it did the body: impalement. Perhaps the most infamous and gruesome method of execution in the Ottoman Empire was impalement. This method involved driving a sharpened stake through the body, typically starting at the rectum and exiting through the mouth or chest. This method of execution was not only excruciatingly painful, but also a slow and torturous death that could take hours or even days to conclude. Envision the stake, hewn from sturdy wood and honed to a deadly point, erected in a field of execution where the victim's screams blended with the wind, a prolonged symphony of suffering that tested the limits of human endurance. Impalement was often reserved for those who had committed the most heinous crimes. The most infamous figure associated with this method of punishment is Vlad the Impaler, though he was an enemy of the Ottomans rather than a subject. However, the Ottomans themselves were not strangers to this method, using it as a tool of terror to suppress resistance and maintain control over their vast territories. Forests of impaled bodies along conquered roads served as barriers of fear, warding off rebellion with the stark visage of agony. The punishment methods used in the Ottoman Empire were as varied as they were brutal. Each method served not only to punish the individual, but also to send a powerful message to the society at large. These punishments were a reflection of the harsh realities of justice in a time when maintaining order often required extreme measures. As we reflect on these methods, we are reminded of the complexities of power, justice, and control in one of history's most formidable empires. In weaving this tapestry of terror and authority, we glimpse the human cost of empire building, where mercy was a luxury few could afford. For more insights into